How's it going? My name is Squarks, and I'm doing my first video log, which, as you notice, is not really a video log because I'm playing a video game. I guess it kind of does make it a video log, but whatever. What I really wanted to do with this was get my thoughts out on the internet as a video logger would, but at the same time, keep it to what I like to do, which is shed light on not very popular games, or not very well known games now. And I figure what better way to do that than to start up a channel and everything, which is what this channel is designed to do. Is designed to show off various underrated or underexposed games. And I've always had a real soft spot for racing games. As you can see right now, I'm playing Burnout Paradise. But the thing is, they don't make very interesting gameplay videos, and I actually attempted to do a couple of gameplay videos on a game called Pure, which is a really fun game, but really, racing games are boring to watch somebody else play, honestly. So I figured out what I do is actually play my favorite racing games as I would, and do video logs over them instead, so I could kind of kill two birds with one stone, because video logs are often very boring visually to look at, and racing games are actually very boring overall to look at. So I decided to do this. The topics that I'm going to be discussing today are going to be the Sony press conference. I know I'm a little bit late, probably like a week late by this point, and what I'm going to be doing with this channel now that I've made it and I've committed to it. Excuse me. Okay, first off, let's talk about the Sony thing. My first impressions were not that good. I'm excited, but not excited at the same time, and I'll get into that a little more. I'm not excited about what they've shown so far at all. To me, it looks like a beefed up PlayStation 3, not much more. And what they did show that was completely new, I don't think is a great idea, in my opinion. Again, I'm not a gaming expert or anything. This is just what my idea of what I'd like to see in a console and what Sony has shown me so far, and kind of the clash between the two. And first thing I'd like to discuss is the PS4 looks like the PS3, but better graphical fidelity. And that might sound stupid, well, because you're saying, well, yeah, of course, like, what else would it be? But remember PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 was a great console. But remember the quantum leap forward that the PlayStation 2 had, or the PlayStation 3 had over the PlayStation 2. The thing was miles ahead of the PlayStation 2. Like, it really seemed like, yeah, this was the next leap in gaming. And because the graphics look so much better, like, there were so many more features, so many online features, stuff like that. There was none of that in the PS4, as far as I'm concerned. Like, there was nothing to really wow about. Like, there was some cool stuff, and the games that they did show looked gorgeous, but they didn't look as comparatively gorgeous as the PS3 did when compared to the PS2. Like, there's not really that quantum leap forward. And the games that they did show, I think, look spectacular, but I don't really see them setting the world on fire. Probably the best game that I've seen for the console is Watch Dogs. And even then, I'm not really that impressed by it graphically, even though it is a very, very pretty game. I'm more impressed by it mechanically, just kind of how it uses like the hacking mechanic as like the main focus of the game, rather than like a shooting mechanic or something like that that has like a hacking on the side or something optional you can do. Like, think of a good example of that was like Deus Ex. Like, Deus Ex takes place in this really awesome cyberpunky world, and even then, hacking isn't really all that it could be in that game. Like, the game seems like it would be amazing if it focused exclusively on hacking, and like, I'm not saying they should have done that, but they could have made a good game out of that. And Watch Dogs really looks like it's kind of capitalizing on that. And I think it looks like it's doing it in a really nice way. But like I said, graphically, it's just very pretty. It doesn't really blow me away at all. It doesn't. They're still not that photorealistic. And what I mean by that is, when I'm looking at it, I still feel like I'm looking at a video game. And I think part of that is because it is such a pretty game. It kind of reminds me again that I'm looking at a video game. Like, it's kind of, if you're aware of the concept of Uncanny Valley, you're kind of you're kind of in the right set, you're the right mindset to know what I'm getting at here. It's like games, the higher end games on this generation of consoles, being the Xbox 360, the PS3, and I guess I'd put the Wii U in there too, since it's kind of more along the same lines, like power wise. Um, the really good looking games on there, you kind of forget that you're playing a video game, but then when you go better than that, you're kind of reminded that you're playing a video game because it looks so good. You're like, oh my god, this video game looks realistic. Oh wait, that's right, I'm playing a video game. Because it isn't quite at perfect photorealism yet, but it is better than what we had before. And I think that's something that'll pass with time, but it kind of puts you in that uncanny mindset, Valley, where if you don't know what the uncanny valley is, it's this thing in. I'm driving awfully, by the way. I'm usually a lot better than this, but I'm not really paying attention. The uncanny valley. What the uncanny valley is it's a thing in robotics where if you make, the more you make a robot realistic, the more approachable it becomes until it passes a certain point where it almost looks exactly like a person, but your brain kind of registers that it's not, because it's actually very hard to create a fake person, like even harder than you would think, and even you would think it's pretty hard. Wow, I just got cream there. But yeah, your brain picks up on very subtle things that you're not consciously aware of, and that kind of puts you at unease. Like it kind of makes you on edge when you're looking at a robot that's almost perfect but not quite. It's called the uncanny valley. But it doesn't apply to things that are very unhuman, unrealistic, like R2D2. R2D2 is a very charismatic little guy, and you never, ever feel um, on edge with him unless you have some very crippling like fear of trash cans. Um, but yeah, that's kind of like instead of fear, picture immersion as the effect here. Instead of being uneasy, you're unimmersed. So it looks so good, it looks so great, but your brain kind of subconsciously picks up on little things like very subtle movements that don't move the way they should, or characters not moving the way they should. And your brain picks up on that, and suddenly you realize you're playing a video game instead of getting immersed in the story. But that doesn't really happen. Oh my god, I'm really getting destroyed. That doesn't really happen in less graphically intense games. Like, a good example is in Halo, and I'm actually going to come back to Halo in a little bit when I'm talking about one of the PlayStation 4's other features, but Halo, especially Halo 3. Halo 3 is, by all accounts, an ugly game. Like it's not a graphical powerhouse by any sense of the words. But you still get kind of immersed in it because it doesn't look great. You're not subconsciously picking up on things that don't look great because it all kind of blends together into like this surrealist world. And another really good example of that is in not realistic games. Like I'm talking about like the Zeldas and like any Nintendo property really. Like they go for a very stylized. That's the word I'm looking for. A very stylized look, and your brain does not pick up on inconsistencies as much because your brain knows that yeah, this isn't real life, but it can get into it because it's not picking up on those things. And that's a really good place to be, but it's really hard to do something like that when you're trying to do a realistic setting, because the more realistic you get, the more your brain feels unease. So I guess it is more like Uncanny Valley than anything. That was a very long tangent. Getting back on the PlayStation 4. I apologize for that, but I don't know, that's something I kind of want to talk about too. Um, Getting back on the PlayStation 4, another feature that was discussed was the motion sensing. Motion sensing, I think, is a great thing if used properly. Motion sensing, I think, is the way of the future if used properly. If used in the right circumstances, motion gaming can be the greatest thing in the world. But the thing is, when you introduce that as a core mechanic in your system, then you're kind of inviting developers to use it very flippantly. Like developers won't really think much of shoehorning a mechanic in if it's part of your system. So a really good example of that is like Ratchet and Clank. The first Ratchet and Clank game on PS3 had this section where you're in free fall, and you actually have to tilt the DualShock controller around to balance them out and stuff like that and steer them. That was fairly well implemented compared to some other games, but it still felt kind of odd. And I think that was mostly because the developer felt like, especially being a PlayStation exclusive, the developer felt like they had to make the most out of the PlayStation 3's features. One of them being the DualShock or the 6-axis. And I think that kind of same kind of thing is going to happen. Like you don't really see too much of the 6-axis being used, especially now that the PlayStation Move is out. And I'm kind of afraid that they took the wrong approach to that. I know a lot of gamers would complain about this, but I really think it should have been a separate purchase. Because when you make it a separate purchase, you make it almost like it's almost like you're deliberately making a niche market, and you're making developers think more along the lines of, okay, if we want to make a motion control game, we have to make it a really good motion control game, and stuff like that. So I'm not really that excited about the motion control. Like the motion control technology does look pretty sound. I'm pretty excited about what it can do, but I'm not really excited about what I think it will do. It's the same thing with the Kinect. Actually, the Kinect is a bad example because most of the games on that system have been shit, like really shit. But it's a great example because of what it can happen with it as opposed to what did happen. Like you see all these students making really cool mods and stuff. Wow, fucking bad. Really, we see making really cool mods and stuff with this motion control technology, but you don't see developers making too much for it. As opposed to with the PlayStation Move, I think the PlayStation Move has been handled rather well. All things considered, like some of the PlayStation Move stuff is phenomenal. Like on a lot of the shooting games, it actually really feels good. It really feels cool when you're playing it. And stuff like I know Little Big Planet 2 used it effectively and stuff like that. And how the hell did I live through that? But yeah, I think as a core mechanic, it's not going to work. But if you make it an optional mechanic, it has a better chance of working well. And by optional, I mean like you have to purchase a separate thing, or even make like, even if you could find a way to not have to make it a separate purchase, because that would, of course, people would say that's like gouging people, like kind of ripping them off by not getting a full console, and I do disagree with that. I think that is a pretty good way of differentiating between the two. But you could make it like the motion control is an optional extra, like say like downloadable software or something. Like you don't have it on your system right on the get-go, but you can download it. And I think that would make all the difference for developers who are making their stuff and stuff like that. So that's my opinions on the Move. I don't think it's a great idea. I think it can be implemented well, but I don't think it will the way that Sony's presented it. And that brings me to the other feature that I really think looks awesome on paper, but I really don't think will translate that well to actual good design, is the share button. And what the share button is this little button on the side of the controller. Actually, before I get into that, let me talk a little bit about the controller, because the controller I think is actually really excellent. The DualShock design is a very good design. I'm more partial to the Xbox controller with the inverted thumbsticks, but I will readily admit that the PlayStation DualShock controller is fantastic. Like, it feels good. It's small. It's fairly small for like a standard controller. Maybe not. I've played with the GameCube and stuff like that. That's a tiny controller, but the DualShock is a small controller without feeling small. Like, it packs a lot into a little package, and it really feels comfortable when you're playing. And what they've done with the DualShock 4 is they've added a little touchpad on the front of it. Like, picture what the PS Vita had on the back of it, and you'll have a good idea of what I'm talking about. And I think that is a great design choice. Like, I cannot wait to see what people do with that. Because it does not get in... The only tangible differences when you're playing a normal game is that the start, select, and home buttons have been removed. And that's really the only thing. It doesn't get in the way of any of the other controls. Like, you still have your full square, triangle, X, circle buttons. You still have your D-pad, you still have both analog sticks, and you still have that motion control, I guess. But the touchscreen does not get in the way of any of that, and I think that's great. I think having like an extra control surface is always good as long as it doesn't interfere with the previous controls. Which is wow, I went flying. Which is where I think, no way did I drive away from that. Oh, that's rad. You can see why I love this game. But yeah, that's one of the areas where I think the DS faltered, is like they had this control interface being the touchscreen, but it did interfere with the other buttons because you actually had to take your hand away from the buttons to use it, whereas a PlayStation DualShock 4, the touchpad is very intuitive in its use because it looks like you could easily just slide your thumb over and use it. You don't really have to. For me, a good litmus test when determining a good controller is how often, when you're playing the game, you have to look down at your controller. And well, being a portable game, you're always looking down at the controller on the DS. But my point is, like, you have to put yourself in a different mindset to use the touchscreen than you would when you're using the regular buttons. And I think the DualShock 4 pulls that off brilliantly because it really doesn't seem like you have to get into that much different of a mindset between using the touchpad and between using the buttons, because it all looks very close together, very easy to grasp, and stuff like that. So, touchpad good, very good design, good job, Sony. And I can't wait to see what developers do with that, because I can see like gestures playing a big part in games that are kind of running out of buttons. Like realistic shooters are always running out of buttons. And if you've ever played, what was it? Oh, that really realistic shooter that was all the rage. Well, it wasn't all the rage. It sold terribly, but Flashpoint, Operation Flashpoint, Dragon Rising, and Red River. Both those games ran out of buttons, and you had to use the D-pad for a lot of stuff, like a lot of menu stuff, like real time, and it kind of got in the way of stuff. So I'm really looking forward to see what people do with gestures, like maybe a swipe to the side would mean one thing, and a swipe to the other side would mean another, or swipe up, or swipe down, or circle motion, stuff like that. And that's all stuff that you don't really have to think about too much. Like, you all know what a line looks like. You usually just take your hand off the thumbstick and quickly swipe over and quickly go back to the thumbstick. It would be as easy as pressing like the select button or the start button. And that could open up a whole new set of options for developers when they're button mapping. Is like, okay, instead of having a whole menu drop down, let's have like a certain swipe do something. And that's fantastic. I love that. So I'm really looking forward to that. But with the controller becomes a little dark side, and that's the share button, which I'm not excited about. And the reason I'm not excited about it is, well, let me describe what it is first. It is this little button on the side of the controller, and what the PlayStation 4 does is it keeps a log of gameplay a few minutes back, and you can press the share button, and it brings up this log, and you can select gameplay clips of that and share them. And which sounds like a really great idea, and you're like, oh, Sparks, what are you thinking? That's an awesome idea. People can share their gameplay, blah blah blah. It's another one of those things where I think it should have been an optional thing. I don't think it should have been built right into the console. And my reasoning for that is like, in any user generated content mechanic in a game, be it Halo's Forge, Far Cry's map editor, stuff like that. Little Big Planet is a huge one. That's like the core gameplay focus. It's always, you have to sort through so much bad crap to get to the good stuff. And what I mean by that is, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should as a player. That might sound really cruel, but honestly it's kind of the truth. Like, people who are good at making maps or making gameplay videos are really good at it for a reason. It's because they dedicate time to it and they really want to make something good. Whereas somebody could see this button and say, oh, I got like 360 no scope, and of course, if you've ever seen those videos, they're boring as hell and nobody really pays attention to them. Unless you're really into like the first person shooter crowd and stuff like that. But I can see a lot of people using it very, again, I use the word flippantly. I can see people kind of taking it for granted and capturing clips that really wouldn't be all that spectacular on their own. It wouldn't really warrant anybody paying any attention to them, but people will upload them anyway simply because they can. And why would having that optional help? Well, because people who are playing games for the sake of playing games probably aren't all that interested in recording them unless it's readily at their fingertips. And people who are very interested in recording gameplay footage would want a separate way to do that that's not in the core system. And what I mean by that is, like I said, there's going to be a lot of crap. It's inevitable. And even on like really well done systems, like on Halo 3's Forge system was actually really well implemented. They had of course you had like groups and stuff like that who would get together and make like really cool forges and stuff like that. And they had like Bungie favorites and stuff, which I do see Sony doing, is making like a favorites page to actually highlight good videos. Is like, but at the same time, people who are trying to get noticed will have a very hard time doing that. And that's kind of inevitable with this, is because if everybody's making gameplay video, people will not pay attention to it as much. And a really great example of that is Machinima. And the Machinima channel, it has so many videos and so many people uploading kind of crappy videos that, like, it's really hard to get yourself noticed on that channel. Oh, sorry, excuse me. But yeah, I think the only real fix for that is to make it, again, a separate thing. And it doesn't... This is one thing where I don't think it should have to be paid for, but I think it should be an optional download, because people who are just playing games will skip over the download and say, oh, I don't want to make gameplay videos, I want to play my game, I want to watch other people's gameplay videos, blah, 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 blah. But people who are making gameplay videos will download that, and it's like a conscious choice, I guess is what I'm getting at, and instead of a something that you feel like you're forced into by buying the console and having it shoved upon you. So people who want to make gameplay videos and are dedicated to making gameplay videos can, and people who don't really care on one way or another will have a very small roadblock, I guess, in the form of downloading it. And they will not make videos that they would have otherwise made that would have been crap. So it kind of takes a tiny, like an insignificant amount of effort, but that little bit of effort will kind of separate the people who really want it to the people who just couldn't care less about it. I'm kind of repeating myself, but I kind of want to make myself clear on this, because when I'm talking out loud, it really sounds kind of bad. Like I really feel like I'm kind of sounding like snobbish, like only real experts should be able to use this stuff. And no, that's not at all what I'm getting at. It's like people who want to use this stuff should use it, and people who don't want to use this stuff should not feel obligated to use it because it's not a core feature in the system. But of course it is, and that's why I'm kind of on the fence about it. Like, I can see a lot of people getting use out of it. Like, if you've ever watched the Achievement Hunter videos, I can see them getting a ton of use out of this thing, because if they're making like a video to get an achievement, they're only really going to be doing like a 5-minute video anyway, so why not use the built-in feature? And it does seem like it's very easy to use, like very simple to use, so a lot of people will get a lot of use out of this. But with people who people like me who are doing Let's Plays and stuff like that, I don't really see myself getting a whole lot of use out of it, because I'm going to be recording like an hour or so at a time, so why would I want like a 5-minute recorder? So yeah, that's my opinion on that, and god damn it, they're doing bad. I'm going to switch my car off. So that's my opinion on that. What else was I going to talk about with the PlayStation 4? Oh yes, the elephant in the room. Sony never showed what the PlayStation 4 looks like. And I completely understand that. Like, a lot of people are really getting on them about that, and I am not one of those people, I don't think. I'm actually kind of happy that they didn't really show it off too much, because I don't... Yeah, guess what I pre-ordered this game for? Because I don't see, how would I put this in words? Sony has always had a really excellent design in their consoles. That much I will argue till the end of days, that I think Sony visually designs their consoles to be a lot more striking than the competition. I think the only console that was more visually appealing than a PlayStation console would be like the Nintendo GameCube. I think the Nintendo GameCube was a really nice little console until you actually want to set it up and you realize it takes up so much space despite being such a small little thing. But anyway, PlayStation, what I'm getting at here is, from what I've heard, they haven't finalized a design, so they don't really have anything to show as far as the physical design of the console goes. Which brings up the question of, well, why would they do a press conference if they don't have anything to show? And of course they do have something to show. They've got the controller and stuff, which I really appreciate that Sony did this, that they released some stuff ahead of when they were actually finished to give us an idea of what the finished product will look like, even though they're not finished. Not a lot of people do that. Not a lot of people are brave enough to do that. And as you probably have seen right now, I'm actually an Xbox gamer, but I do very much respect Sony and what they've been doing with the PlayStation 3. I think the PlayStation 3 is a stellar console. I prefer, let me get this out of the way, I prefer the Xbox 360 for personal gameplay reasons. I don't think one is better than the other by any stretch of the imagination. They are both excellent consoles, and I really hate people who get into like flame wars over which console is better because functionally they're almost identical. Like when you're playing a game, there's not really that much difference besides like the controllers, and I do actually prefer the Xbox controller. But design-wise, I've always preferred PlayStation 3s, and the reason for that is they're very indicative of the time frame that they were designed in. Like the PlayStation 1 looks very quaint now, but back then the design was unbelievably good. I would say the visual design is, or the casing and everything was actually better designed than the N64. A lot of people would call me crazy for that, but I don't know. At the time, I really liked the PlayStation 1. PlayStation 2 continued that in the mid 2000s because it was a very. That was the time where graphics became more important, I would say. Like there was a whole 3D revolution, but then when the newer consoles came out, like the Xbox and the PS2 and the GameCube, there was a lot of focus on making games realistic, and I think the PlayStation 2's physical design reflected that because it was a very aggressive-looking console. It had a lot of sharp edges, a lot of fins on it, on the front of it, and everything like that. Um, but it wasn't aggressive to be overstated. It was actually a very understated console. It was nice and thin and everything. Um, and I don't know. I've always really liked the design at the time. Right now, like if you made that design now, people would laugh you out of the room because it does look like a very aggressive console now compared to all like the really smooth curves and everything like that you're seeing. Um, but compared to the original Xbox, the PS2 blew the original Xbox out of the water in terms of physical design. Like the Xbox was an ugly, ugly console. And even the Xbox 360, I didn't really like the Xbox 360 design too much. Like I prefer the Xbox 360 actually, but physically, I don't think it's that great to look at. And I think it got even worse with the Xbox 360 Slim. I actually own an Xbox 360 Slim, but I made a point not to purchase the standard black one because when that console in piano black doesn't look very nice at all. I think it looks very disproportionate. I guess would be the right word. The proportions just don't do it for me. But with a different paint job on it, I actually have the Halo Reach paint job, and that looks pretty good. It's got like a matte silver, and I've always kind of preferred matte colors over glossy colors. Um, I just think they look nicer. And even on like cars, holy shit, that was awesome. Even on like if you've been paying attention to car shows recently, you know, like a lot of cars are actually having a matte paint job option, and I think it looks gorgeous. Like they're very hard to maintain, but they look nice. Um, anyway, getting back on topic, like I didn't really like the Xbox Slim. I didn't really like the Xbox 360 original design, but I love the PlayStation 3's designs. Like the first PlayStation 3 did have like a glossy finish, but I think it was really well implemented. That was a weird glitch. Like it was a massive console, but they used that to their advantage. They made it look powerful. They made it look strong, like really tough. And then when the PlayStation Slim came out, they made everything a lot more understated than the original PlayStation 3. Like they had the buttons a little bit more kind of minimalist because they actually had just regular circle buttons, pushy buttons, instead of like the touch-sensitive ones that the original PS3 had. And the original PS3 had like chrome touch-sensitive buttons that are very kind of flashy. And the PlayStation 3 Slim didn't have those. It actually had regular buttons that were really flush with the console. And the whole console had like this kind of matte, dark gray, not quite black look to it, and I thought it was gorgeous. And then again with the PlayStation 3 Super Slim that just came out, again, I think they knocked it out of the park with that. The curves are really nice. The the actual features on it I think kind of suck. Like I don't like how it has like a physical door now instead of like a tray that you just kind of stick the discs in. But whatever. But I do think the design of the Super Slim is amazing, and I'm really looking forward to see what Sony does with the PlayStation 4. And I guess my point is, I'd rather have them take their time with like the prototyping phase and release what they have, than shove something out there that might be an ugly prototype that they change later, like what happened with the original. If you remember back in 2005, I think they announced the boomerang controller for the PlayStation 3, which was an ugly, horrible, uncomfortable looking, unfortunate thing. and which later turned out to be a prototype. It wasn't actually the finished design because, of course, they went back to the standard DualShock 3 controller. But that's an example of I'd rather them wait and give us a really, really good finished product than have them give us something that's not done yet and won't, and that's not indicative of the final product. So that's my opinion on the PlayStation 3. I think I covered everything I want to talk about. Yeah, I covered the share button, I covered the motion controls, I covered the design that didn't show up, and I'm actually a little disappointed at people's reaction that Sony didn't reveal the actual design of the console, because I'll freely admit that I kind of joked around with my friends about it. I was like, yeah, Sony didn't actually reveal the console in the console reveal. That's kind of weird. But I completely understand why they didn't do that if they don't have a finished product to show, which is again what I've gotten from internet rumors and stuff like that is like they haven't actually finalized the design of it. But I'm getting kind of annoyed at people who are like really bashing Sony for not showing the console off. I was like, well, they didn't really have to give you a press conference, you entitled dickweeds. Like, this was a privilege, this wasn't a right. Like, they didn't have to show off the controller, they didn't have to show off anything. Like, in fact, with the Xbox 360 Slim, it was actually really funny because they revealed the Xbox 360 Slim a day before it hit the shelves. And Sony could have just as easily done that, but no, they actually gave us the final version of the controller and everything. So I'm a little surprised that they didn't show anything, but I'm not at all upset. So yeah, that's my opinions on the Sony PlayStation 3, and that brings me not at all neatly into my second topic, which is what I'm going to be doing with this channel. First and foremost, I want to apologize for my last video, the Supreme Commander 2 Let's Play. I know the audio was atrocious. I am very sorry for that. Something happened with the render, and I committed a cardinal sin of video editing. It was like I listened to it before it rendered, and it sounded great, like it sounded fine. But after it rendered, the levels got all weirdly mixed up, because at some points you could barely hear me over the gameplay audio, and at other points the gameplay audio is not even there. So I have no idea what happened, but I should have listened to it before I uploaded it onto YouTube, and I'm going to keep it on there, because yeah, that did actually take a while to render, because it was like a 40-minute gameplay video running at, I think, 720, I think I said it at. So I'm not going to redo it, but at the same time, I'm learning from my mistakes. So expect the next couple of gameplay videos or Let's Plays or whatever to feature much improved audio. Video I'm fairly pleased at. Oh, that was a wall. Yeah, video I'm fairly pleased at. I don't see any problems with that. But yeah, audio-wise, it was bad, and I apologize. Moving on from here, I am moving forward with my plans to do a review series, which is going to be titled Tales from the Bargain Bin. And on my Halo Reach Let's Play, I kind of touched on this, is that I'm planning to do this video that kind of highlights games that aren't as popular as they should be, or in some cases more popular than they ought to be. And what I mean by that is, like, I really want to bring games into the limelight that either did not sell very well initially, or sold really well and dropped off quickly. And most of the games are going to be good, so if you want to hear me rage out or anything like that, I'm probably not going to, unless it's certain cases. Like, I know I really want to do one video that I thought that really pissed me off immensely, but the thing is, nobody has ever heard of any of these games, or at least casual gamers haven't heard of any of these games. And I kind of want to bring them to the limelight to say, look, these games in the bargain bin, they're good. Or these games in the bargain bin, as the case may be, they're bad. So either do or don't pick them up. It's, of course, it's entirely up to you, but this is just my opinion on these games. Oh, what the fuck? Excuse me. So that's kind of my idea with that. I want to do something different, because a lot of people are doing, like, the first thing I think people think of when they think of internet reviewing is reviewing very infamous games, and I kind of want to do the opposite of that. I want to kind of do not necessarily obscure, but lesser looked at games. Games like Supreme Commander 2, actually. I was actually planning on doing a review on that, but as I'm about to discuss, I had some issues with my camera. Initially, I was actually going to use my phone as a camera and do this, and I had this whole thing set up, and I looked at the video, and the video was actually not that good, and it was actually incredibly difficult to get it to do what I wanted to do in terms of like transferring files and everything like that. So I have ordered a proper camera, and the camera choice may surprise you. I actually have a GoPro Hero HD coming to me. And people who know what those are probably thinking like, Squarks, what are you thinking? You're a person who sits in front of a computer, what would you possibly need a GoPro for? Two reasons. One, it's very modular. It's very easy to set up to anything, because it has this really neat mounting system. It's really small, it doesn't take up a lot of space, and it takes a really nice picture, and for a comparably very reasonable price. I think I got mine for, I think it was like $269 or something like that, and it's like one of their higher, I think one of their higher end ones, but yeah, very good price for very good picture quality. But what GoPros are known for is their durability, and their ability to be pretty much taken and filming anywhere, because they're waterproof, they're shockproof, they're freeze-proof, they're everything-proof. They're like miracle cameras, but most people use them for like extreme sports videos. Like they're very easy to mount onto like the handlebars of a bike, for example, or on like a dashboard cam for racing, stuff like that. So obviously, me not being anywhere near extreme sports, you're probably thinking like, well, that was a kind of weird choice. But yeah, the one reason was for ease of use. I can mount it anywhere. The files are it's very easy. It's very easy to camera to work with. The second reason was I'm not planning on just doing this channel. Me and my buddy were actually talking about doing some other videos with a GoPro that would only really work with a GoPro, and I'm not really going to get into that right now. I kind of wanted to be a surprise of what we're doing, mostly because I'm not entirely sure what we're doing. But we do know we have some ideas, and we kind of decided that a GoPro would be the best option to go with. And I didn't really want to buy two cameras, like a GoPro and like a regular camcorder for when I'm doing this stuff. So look forward to that. I might actually get a new mic now too, because my excuse me, I guess the normal mic that I use is a Logitech boom mic, but it's kind of seen better days. Like it's literally in pieces in front of me. Like it works fine and everything, but it just doesn't. It's broken essentially. It doesn't have a back plate. The circuit board is kind of hanging out, stuff like that. No, my voice is cracking. My voice is actually getting tired. Probably wrapping this up. So, yeah, expect more from that. Like I really want to do that Tales from the Bargain Bin thing. I'm going to be doing more vlogs because again, I really like racing games, and I think they do make really boring videos. So I'm probably just going to kind of combine the two to make hopefully a semi-interesting video. Because usually vlogs are very visually boring, and racing game videos are very conceptually boring. So hopefully if I combine the two, I'll combine their strengths. Yay. Thumbs up. So I think that's all I had to talk about. I guess to cap this off, I better do a really rad-ass crash if I can. That's the thing about this game, is like, you always get into these really bizarre accidents when you're not expecting it. When you are trying to do it, it's kind of hard to make like a really spectacular one. Unless, of course, I do that. Yeah, there's this mechanic in here where you could actually, like, start like a chain of destruction across the city just by pressing both shoulder buttons at the same time. It's really quite spectacular because you hit these cars and you try and get your high score up, but it can go on indefinitely if you're good at it. And I used to actually be fairly good at it. Like I think I had a streak of like a couple hundred cars. But it's really spectacular how stupid but fun this is. And you can like do this thing called ground break where you would use up your boost meter to bounce, I guess. Anyway, that's enough of that. So expect some more video logs combined with racing gameplay footage in hopefully the near future. And until next time, that is all. I have been your lovely, lovely host, Squarks, signing out.